All right, well, when I'm treating people, I'm looking at 7 areas that may need change to be made for their problem to go away. So their neck injury, long-standing neck injury, their back injury, hip problem, shoulder problem, elbow, wrist, jaw issue, ankle and knee, and feet issues as well. That's pretty much the whole body. I don't do so much work with hands. Hands are a very specialized area. If you get hands wrong, it can stuff someone up for life. So that's why there's hand occupational therapists and hand physiotherapists. Hand things, I generally send people off pretty quick to one of those specialists. So the 7 areas. So the easiest thing is just looking at length imbalances. So muscles that are too short, and patterns of muscles being too long and tight or too short and tight. To open up a body that's just tight, that's easy. The problem goes away generally pretty quick that someone is tight. And they're low on the Baton score, the 9-point flexibility test. They have a low score, which means their connective tissue is very tight already. And they generally have a Northern European, Scandinavian, Irish, Scottish ancestry. They're good strength athletes, but they're very stiff generally, just genetically stiff. They open up very quick. So I'm looking at finding where the tight muscles are. It may not be in that area. For a neck injury, they may have a tight hip, and that's usually the case. They may have a tight calf on one side, and that's why their neck has suddenly got this rotational pattern. Or not suddenly, but it's built up over time. We're looking at where the imbalances in their body are. So it's open things up. It relieves tension close by or further away in the system. Second is looking at muscle strength problems, strength and timing issues. So muscles need to fire in a certain sequence. That sequence goes out, it overloads joints because they're not meant to fire with so much load all the time because of certain muscles being too active. I tend to find a lot of people don't know that one. That was like basic information in my course. There's firing patterns for different parts of the body, for the hip, for the knee, for the spine, for the neck and shoulder as well. So we're looking at rectifying with strength exercise and also relieving tension through the structure for the strength to come back to more balanced. So we're looking at balance either side of the spine. We get that happening, and then the body suddenly is not pulling itself all over the place to find the central line all the time. So number 3, we're looking at nerve conditions, nerve irritations, nerve compressions. Nerve compressions can come from tight muscles and from weak muscles in certain areas, and usually weak muscles that are not in the area where the problem is. So soft tissue therapy is very good at treating nerve conditions, and Bowen therapy is highly specialized in that area. And that's my main thing that I specialize in, Bowen therapy. It's nerve problems, that's 3. Number 4, ligament tightness, fascial tightness through the system. So fascia weaves through the body, around every single cell, around the bones, around the muscles. Everything's packaged inside fascia, and essentially everything is connected to everything else in the body because of the fascial connections. I remember watching a video of a toddler just trying to roll over and looking at when I was doing pediatric stuff. And every single part of that baby's body was helping it roll over. Its fingers, the way it held, I'm sure its tongue was also doing something to try to help it roll over. That's the whole body working as a unit to achieve something. Just as I move my arms here, my whole body's being used. There's weight shift in my pelvis and all sorts of stuff. So to think that, your neck injury, your neck's got sore because you've got a short calf on one side, it's like that's not unusual to me. And it's just because we're not trained in that way as the schooling system. The schooling system is just stupid. It doesn't give a real world knowledge at all, especially about money. Anyway, so that's 4 levels. 5 is bone position. So short and tight muscles will pull bones into different positions. If I just do this, my ribs are in a different position. If I sit like this all day, my ribs are sitting in the wrong position. No wonder the ligaments get tight. The rib can't roll back because it's stuck because muscles have become too tight. And suddenly I can't breathe properly because the rib's sticking out of the back. It's dislocated, it's subluxed. Pelvis has a lot of mobility as well. You just see it, especially when women have a lot of relaxin in their system when they're pregnant. It's just the pelvis is wanting to open. And then a lot of muscular issues can come from that, from the bone positions. And you can move the bones back into position just by hand motion when there's that much relaxin in the system. So there's also bone abnormalities. Some people have a hemipelvis where the whole pelvis is smaller on one side. That's usually a congenital thing, a birth thing. Hooked acromions, so the acromion in the shoulder is hooked. That's always going to fray the tendon. There's different bone problems that can be causing musculoskeletal issues, usually about the time people are 40. That sort of shows up. That's 5. Number 6 is mind. So people's attitudes, especially to rehab, attitudes to their life, the ability to be able to change, and emotions that are running through the system, especially emotions that are stuck. That's a big cause of problems and pain in people's bodies. And number 7 is the autonomic nervous system, which is associated with vagal tone. I found with shocks, if people had a fall, a dislocated shoulder, anything that's caused a big shock in their body, a trip to the hospital because of a medication issue that's been threatening to it's like, it's just a shock to the body. That shock can stay in the fascial system and especially in the nervous system. Even when that's forgotten, the body still shows signs of it. So the vagal tone, the vagus nerve's one of the cranial nerves. It comes, the only one that comes out of the skull, and it goes down through here, innervates most internal organs and the gut especially. It's a big one in Parkinson's disease, and it's a big one in PTSD. There's a lot of research on the vagus nerve, and polyvagal theory is an area with a lot of research in it now, especially for complex trauma. So what the vagus nerve is then, it's determining how much response to threat is in the system, and it'll make the cortisol levels in the body raise all the time. They're higher than where they should be, but the body sees that as normal. The whole body is like this. It's like this all the time. And you see people fly off the handle for no apparent reason. Their vagal tone is through the roof all the time, but their body thinks that's normal. So when I do my Bowen therapy in particular, there's certain moves in Bowen that affect the autonomic nervous system and this vagal tone. Their body goes from being like this, fast breathing rate, everything tense, pain everywhere, to and you see it happen in minutes, and in one session there can be a big difference. And the body gradually gets the signal, we've been too high for too long. This isn't where it should be. Let's come back to baseline. Remembers where baseline is, and it makes a reset. That's a big problem for people with fibromyalgia, with systemic issues through the system, nervous system issues, people with a lot of emotional and trauma had that in their life, and people going through a bad divorce, going through a lot of chronic pain in their life. The vagal tone will be way up. It'll be way up, and that's where things like Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, things that work for you, they decrease vagal tone, polyvagal tone. So that's where it's useful. That's why people feel so good after doing those sort of things. I hope this is useful to you. These are the things that I look at in my treatments. And this is after 20 years of finding out different ways of how can I help people, because this person's come in, I helped them a little bit, but nowhere near enough for what I would consider a good result. So I'm looking at, okay, how can I help that person more? So I'll go learn this, I'll go learn that. And when I see similar presentations coming in, it's okay, that didn't work before, I'm going to do this, and I see results.